Good morning, I'm Lindsay Klein. We are breaking into programming right now as President Donald Trump is making his way into Western North Carolina. We have a live look right now at Air Force One landing at Asheville Regional Airport. There you see the First Lady Melania Trump by his side. This is President Trump's first visit to the state since returning to the White House. He and First Lady Melania Trump will tour hard-hit areas still recovering nearly 4 months after Hurricane Helene. They're going to be joined by several lawmakers today, including Representative Chuck Edwards of North Carolina's 11th Congressional District, Representative Virginia Foxx of North Carolina's 5th Congressional District, Representative Tim Moore from North Carolina's 14th Congressional District, and Representative Pat Harrigan, as well as several others. Important to note, we just mentioned Virginia Foxx as one of those representatives joining Trump in Western North Carolina. She was directly impacted by Helene. Her husband was stuck for several days after their driveway washed away and he couldn't leave the house. Helene did hit Western North Carolina, you'll recall, September 27th. Months after the storm, communities there are still suffering, which is why Trump is there today. People have been left without homes, many still living in tents with hardly any access to heat in these frigid temperatures. The area still looks catastrophic in many of the areas there in Western North Carolina. Right now, we're just taking a look at President Donald Trump and Melania Trump getting off of Air Force One and preparing to get into a vehicle there to tour the damage. We know President Trump is expected to have a briefing in Fletcher in about 30 minutes. And we mentioned there are several lawmakers traveling with him. And in addition to those lawmakers, the president of Samaritan's Purse, Franklin Graham, is also there, and they've had a big role in responding to a lot of these damaged areas that you're seeing there on your screen. President Trump and the First Lady will be in Swannanoa today as well, and there they are going to meet with homeowners and Samaritan's Purse beneficiaries, along with the pastor of Eagle Rock Church, Ramona Nix. Air Force One is expected to leave Asheville Regional Airport around 1:15 p.m., so he's going to be spending a few hours here in Western North Carolina. Before taking office, Trump was pretty critical of FEMA and the Biden administration for using politics to cloud the response to this deadly disaster, even mentioning North Carolina in his inaugural speech on Monday. He now appears poised to make changes to that federal emergency management agency, even considering overhauling the department. President Trump has tapped Cameron Hamilton, a former Navy SEAL with limited experience managing natural disasters, as FEMA's acting director. And some of his conservative allies have proposed reducing how much the agency will reimburse states for handling floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, and other catastrophes. Trump previously said individual states should be in charge of directing response to natural disasters rather than FEMA, and that the federal government should only step in subsequently to provide funding. But as for today, we are not sure where exactly in Asheville or the surrounding areas President Trump will be visiting, but we know he'll tour hurricane-battered communities before getting back onto Air Force One and heading to wildfire-ravaged Los Angeles, California, where they obviously are also suffering big time there. Trump does plan to hold a Saturday rally in Las Vegas as well. An advisor said he will offer details on keeping a campaign promise to exclude tips from federal taxes after he won Nevada in an election day upset. But there you see President Trump and Melania walking over and meeting some people there at the Asheville airport. And it looks like Governor Josh Stein also in attendance. He was expected to be there, and there he is. We're supposed to maybe hear him speak shortly as well. And again, Trump is holding a briefing in about 30 minutes. But we've done a lot of coverage in Western North Carolina, obviously, since that storm hit. And the communities there just still are devastated by the damage. There is a lot to recover from. And hopefully he can help them out during his visit today once he sees just how catastrophic it really is there. Again, Trump being joined by several lawmakers today, and we mentioned a couple of those. We mentioned Virginia Foxx, and as we said there, she was directly impacted by Helene. Her husband was stuck inside for several days. Their driveway was washed away. And I know Trump will be making remarks there in western North Carolina, which we will carry on WXII 12. And we're going to go ahead and listen to what he's saying right now.
I'm not going to California until I stop in North Carolina. So here we are. We're going to go visit the site, and we're going to work with probably 3 of the congressmen, Republican congressmen, who've been fantastic, whose areas have been affected, and with Michael Whatley, the governor, and whoever else is, we decide to get involved. Probably less FEMA, because FEMA just hasn't done the job. And we're looking at the whole concept of FEMA. I like, frankly, the concept when North Carolina gets hit, the governor takes care of it. When Florida gets hit, the governor takes care of it, meaning the state takes care of it. To have a group of people come in from an area that don't even know where they're going in order to solve immediately a problem is something that never worked for me. But this is probably one of the best examples of it not working. And there's been some others, like in Louisiana, etc. So we're going to be doing something on FEMA that I think most people agree. I'd like to see the states take care of disasters. Let the state take care of the tornadoes and the hurricanes and all of the other things that happen. And I think you're going to find it a lot less expensive. You'll do it for less than half, and you're going to get a lot quicker response. So that seems to be the recommendation, but we'll be making that recommendation over the next couple of weeks. We're going to go to the site now, and we're going to figure out a plan for really demolition and cleaning, because not a lot's been done, and we're very disappointed in the Biden administration, but we're going to make up for lost time. And I said I'd do that, and this is about the earliest we could possibly be here, and we're honored to be here. This has been a great state. They're great people, and they've really been mishandled. But this group is going to be great, and we're going to get it taken care of. Any questions?
How will you respond to FEMA? Do you expect to ask Congress for additional aid for North Carolina and California?
Yeah, it will be direct. In other words, the aid will go through us. So rather than going through FEMA, it will go through us. And I think maybe this is a good place to start. Because, and in all fairness to the governor, and in all fairness to everybody else, FEMA was not on the ball. And we're going to turn it all around. Yes.
A lot of Americans think that this is symbolic of what your campaign was all about. America first, putting your priorities to Americans, even going to California where their policies might have been one of the biggest reasons why they've had these problems. But you're putting the American people first. Your thoughts on that?
We are. Thank you. I like that question. Boy, I want more questions like that. That's even a statement. Thank you very much. He's a good man, that guy. And he's also a very professional reporter, I have to say. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're putting America first. We're putting, in this case, North Carolina and California. We're going to do a good job in California. That is a disaster like, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like it, frankly. They say the biggest in the history of California. I think, has anything bigger than that happened in the whole country ever? It looks like, I don't want to say what it looks like, but you know what I'm going to say. It looks like something hit it. And we won't talk about what hit it, but it is a bad, bad situation. And I guess I'm going to meet with some government officials, but I mean, much more importantly, and in California, just to refer to it for a second, millions of gallons of water are waiting to be poured down through already the half pipes that are already built. I mean, they've been up for 40 years, and about 20 years ago, they turned off the water. And it's the water that comes from the Pacific Northwest. Some of it comes out of Canada, and it flows there, and it probably has flowed there for a minute. And they turn it off, and they route it out to the Pacific. And in the meantime, you don't have water in the hydrants, you don't have water in the spring systems. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. And everyone's trying to figure out, why aren't they turning it back? They say it's the Delta smelt, it's a fish. But I find that hard to believe, but we'll figure it out. And without doing that, you're going to continue to have problems.
Mr. President, what are you prepared to do, sir, if OPEC doesn't respond to your call to cut oil prices?
Well, we want to see OPEC cut the price of oil, and that will automatically stop the tragedy that's taking place in Ukraine. It's a butchering tragedy for both sides, by the way. A tremendous number of Russian soldiers, tremendous number of Ukrainian soldiers, and a lot of bombing of the cities. But right now it's just bullets whacking and hitting men, mostly men, almost in all cases men, and over 1 million men are killed, and they're losing thousands of people a week. It's crazy. It's a crazy war, and it never would have happened if I was president. Would never have happened. This is crazy that it happened, but we want to stop it. Now, one way to stop it quickly is for OPEC to stop making so much money and to drop the price of oil, because they have it nice and high. And if you have it high, that war's not going to end so easily. So OPEC ought to get on the ball, and they ought to drop the price of oil, and that war will stop right away.
Mr. President, funding to Los Angeles because of its sanctuary city policy?
I want to see two things in Los Angeles: voter ID, so that the people have a chance to vote, and I want to see the water be released and come down into Los Angeles and throughout the state. Those are the two things. After that, I will be the greatest president that California has ever seen. I want the water to come down and come down to Los Angeles, and also go out to all the farmland that's barren and dry. You know, they have land that they say is the equivalent of the land in Iowa, which is about as good as there is anywhere on earth. The problem is it's artificial, because they artificially stop the water from going onto the land. So I want two things. I want voter ID for the people of California, and they all want it. Right now you don't have voter ID. People want to have voter identification. You want to have proof of citizenship. Ideally, you have one-day voting, but I just want voter ID as a start, and I want the water to be released, and they're going to get a lot of help from the U.S. Thank you very much. I'll see you in a little while. We'll see you at the site. We'll see you at the site.
About the deportation flights, where are they going from? Where are they going to?
Deportation's going very well. We're getting the bad, hard criminals out. These are murderers. These are people that have been as bad as you get, as bad as anybody you've seen. We're taking them out first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Move to the grass.
All right. You have been listening to President Donald Trump. He is in Western North Carolina, touring damage from Helene today. And you could also see Governor Josh Stein standing next to First Lady Melania Trump there when President Trump was speaking. Trump saying that FEMA, he believes, hasn't, quote, done the job. He says he thinks the state should take care of disasters like this for a quicker response. He is heading to the site now to come up with a plan for demolition and cleaning. He says he's disappointed in the Biden administration, but will make up for lost time. He says he's honored to be here, but believes North Carolina has been mishandled. Trump says he will ask for additional aid for Helene recovery efforts. He says he plans to, quote, turn it all around. He is putting America first to help take care of the several disasters across the country, from North Carolina to wildfire-ravaged California, where he will from here go toward the damage there. So Trump now heading to the site to see what it looks like in Western North Carolina. Again, his first visit to North Carolina since becoming president once again on Monday. We'll have the latest updates on his visit coming up on our news at noon, 4, 5, and 6.